Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the fourth lecture in our Darwin Week lecture series, sponsored by the student group Shift, Secular Humanism, Inquiry, and Free Thought, and co-sponsored by the Humanists of Utah. This evening we have be hearing from Dr. Mark Lowen, an adjunct assistant professor in geology and geophysics. Dr. Lowen holds a PhD in geology from the University of Utah, as well as a master's degree in paleontology from Loma Linda University in California. Since 2000, he's held a paleontology research associate position at the Utah Museum of Natural History, where he's played a vital role in facilitating their research aspects of the department. He has published over 50 articles, papers, and abstracts, and has been included in various projects such as Jurassic Fight Club, film on the History Channel, as well as the Cleveland Lloyd Dinosaur Quarry Visitor Center, and the Dino Expo 2005 for the National Science Museum in Tokyo. Tonight, Dr. Lowen will give us a glimpse at the important role that evolution has played in the diversification of horned dinosaurs and tyrannosaurs over the last 30 million years of the Cretaceous period. So please welcome Dr. Mark Lowen.
Thank you. And yeah, I appreciate you all coming out to celebrate Darwin's birthday on Saturday. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about the horned dinosaurs today. But first I'm going to talk a little bit about Darwin and some of his contributions to the field of paleontology and vice versa. So my talk really is going to be about the radiation of the horned dinosaurs in particular. But let's talk about Darwin. When we think about Darwin, we think of this image, right? This is how we think of Darwin. But really, a lot of the important things that Darwin did, and many of the conclusions that he came up with, really stem from when he really looked like this. So it was really the young Darwin who came up with the idea of evolution and mechanisms to explain it. And it wasn't until much later that people started painting him and we're getting these images that we think of today. So Darwin was about 22 years old when his father signed him up to be the naturalist on the HMS Beagle, which was going on a world tour, exciting world tour. And we all know the story. It was lots of fun. I want to focus a little bit on some of the stuff he did in South America. Darwin took 2 books with him. His only entertainment on the entire voyage was the Bible and Charles Lyell's first volume of Principles of Geology. And this had a profound effect on Darwin, and throughout the rest of his career, Lyell and Darwin were very good friends and colleagues. Lyell's ideas about geology really influenced some of the things that Darwin did. Lyell was also the first person to coin the word paleontology. So in some ways, Lyell's the father of paleontology in addition to geology. So when they got down to the southern tip of South America, Darwin actually made the first geologic map of the tip of South America. And this was directly using some of the things that he learned in Lyell's book. Mapping out the strata, trying to figure out what different formations were there. And at the same time, of course, when they're down here, they almost shipwrecked and died. It was lots of fun. But if you notice in this map, look at all the landfalls that the Beagle actually made. When we think about the voyage of Darwin, we don't really think about all these landfalls. And in each one of these spots, Darwin actually went inland and collected fossils. So some of the first work that he did, I mean, certainly he collected some biological samples, but at the same time, he was collecting fossils. He writes in his diary, I set out on my return in a direct line for Montevideo, having heard of some giant's bones at a neighboring farmhouse, a small stream entering the Rio Negro. I rode there accompanied by my host and purchased for the value of 18 pence the head of the taxodon. So we found this skull here, which turns out to be a rhino hippo-like animal that lived in South America. not closely related to animals from Europe and Africa. In addition, he found this complete skeleton of Scelidotherium. He identified it as being something kind of like an anteater, but this exquisite specimen turns out to be a giant ground sloth. In addition to this skull that he found, which is also another giant ground sloth. In addition, he found bones of a giant armored mammal called a glyptodon. And when he got back to England, he turned these over to the preeminent paleontologist at the time, Richard Owen. Richard Owen, very soon after, coined the word dinosauria, which we'll come back to a little bit later. But Owen's descriptions of Darwin's specimens actually were some of the most important paleontologic work to be done in South America. And realizing that these animals were not like animals from Africa and not like animals from Europe had a profound effect on Darwin. Of course, in the course of his journeys, he went to the Galapagos, he collected a whole bunch of dinosaurs there, and when he got back, he studied them. Of course, he didn't realize they were dinosaurs. But he spent a lot of time after he got back writing up his adventures on his trip. But it was some of the things, both from the fossils that he collected and from many of the biological samples, such as the birds that he collected, that had a profound effect on what was going on with species. And really, when Darwin got back, he was not a very well-respected biologist. But within a few years of starting to publish some of his journal entries from his trip, and his sound basis in comparative anatomy, he was soon respected as one of the preeminent naturalists in England. So on his voyage, he's 22 years old. He gets back in 1938. By about 1941, 1942, he'd already fleshed out his ideas on evolution and natural selection. Evolution wasn't something that was novel. People were starting to realize that the fixity of species was not the way of life. The real tough thing was figuring out what was going on to make that happen.